Okay, welcome to the Learn First podcast. It's your host again, Jay George. I have with me today Bruce. As we like to do always, we give our guests a chance to introduce themselves. So what I'm going to do, Bruce, is hand over to you, if you don't mind. You can tell us a bit more about yourself, your role, and kind of what you like to, yeah, if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself, really, that'd be great.
Certainly. Thanks, Jay. Thank you for having me and hello to everyone. My name is Bruce Bunnick. I'm the undergraduate director of admissions at Lehigh University, which is located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We're about 90 miles west of New York City and approximately 65 miles north of Philadelphia. We enroll approximately 6,000 undergraduates and 2,000 graduate level students. We're a Research One institution that offers four separate undergraduate colleges: engineering, business, arts and sciences, and health. Again, at the undergraduate level, and we have five different graduate schools at Lehigh that encompass the first four I mentioned: business, engineering, arts and sciences, health, and then the fifth is the Graduate College of Education. Selective admissions, we look at applicants holistically. Residential campus, so we attract students from all over the United States and through the world. Um, and we're, again, as I said earlier, we're very holistic. We look at everything that a student submits. Selective in admissions, we admit a little over 25% of the students who apply for admission each
Okay,
year.
okay, thank you. It's quite a good number as well, to be fair. So as you said, it's quite holistic in your approach, but I'm sure we'll crack into all that sort of stuff throughout the conversation today. But yeah, I mean, we can get straight into it. Typically, it's always about student recruitment, admissions, what's going on in the market, and all that sort of stuff. So I guess that's kind of how the conversation will flow. But to start off with, um, the first question, I guess, and kind of to get your thoughts, I'd love to know your thoughts, sorry, on how admissions have been and what are the key shifts and what kind of key shifts have happened for you guys as things have changed. And I'm sure there's been a lot of challenges of engaging new students. So what are those changes and how have you guys dealt with it really?
Well, here in the US, I think we're looking at the demographic cliff that is, we're in full swing right now. That is, by the demographic cliff, I mean a projected decline in the number of high school graduates due to lower birth rates over the past couple of decades. And so there are actually fewer students who are looking at college than the past several years. So we are very mindful of this demographic shift, and that it won't be necessarily a short-term shift. It will very likely, it could last, some are predicting as long as 10 to 15 years. It'll be a slow progression back, but that was one thing. There's this changing perception and value of higher education. So that's another
Hmm.
item you've been working with the return on investment, the rising cost of education, et cetera. Student debt, of course, is always on people's minds. The fortunate part for us here at Lehigh is that we're very, very fortunate in that we try not to use cost as a barrier, where we do have fairly aggressive financial aid programs, and we do have some merit scholarships that drive down the cost for families who might be looking at cost initially, as opposed to the opportunities they have on campus. So we have been very mindful of these things. We've had to shift our plans and our strategies around it.
Okay, appreciate it. There's something that you mentioned that jumped out to me that I think I was going to naturally ask at some point in the conversation, but you mentioned the overall public perception, I guess, of higher education. Um, there's been a lot. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? So I've had some discussions over in the UK. I spoke with a contact of mine who has a massive international recruitment agency, works a lot in the US and also the UK. I've had discussions, and there's been very interesting insights, I would say, that have come out of the discussions, such as like his belief. So my contact's belief, he believes that within the next 20 to 40 years, mainly in the Western world, university will change massively. Um, it's going to get way more competitive. A lot more 4-year degrees will have to turn into 2-year degrees. A lot more 2-year degrees will have to turn into 1-year degrees. And he believes that, I mean, it's an interest. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. He believes that higher education will transfer into corporations. So corporations will have their own higher education institutions. And again, if let's say you want to get into tech, all the major tech companies will just have their university. You just decide which one you want to go to, get your skill sets, and obviously you'll be mainly working in that corporation, but because there'll be transferable skills, because it's tech, you could just take it over elsewhere. That's his thoughts. He thinks in 20 to 30 years, that's what's going to happen. And then higher education will just have to be totally different, a lot shorter in terms of the length. Costs will have to change as well. But that's his thought. And it was just interesting because I never thought of it like that. So I'd love to know your thoughts.
I think that's not beyond, beyond perception. I feel that higher education in maybe 2 to 3 decades from now might adopt a different policy where, as you said, the 4-year degree shrinks down into two, maybe the two into one. In the short term, however, I think, and this is my impression, my belief, is that students who are looking at colleges and universities and they're looking in areas such as the humanities and the social sciences, et
Mhm.
cetera, we're still training people to become broad thinkers and to solve problems from a multitude of directions and angles. And so I still feel that there's value where you might have the students who are humanists or social sciences who collaborate in those 4 years with their colleagues who themselves are in the STEM disciplines or perhaps in the business world where they have a broader exposure as opposed to being a single-minded or at least a student who is simply educated within a discipline in the humanities. So I feel like the evolution of higher education has been ongoing and encouraging students to broaden, even the people who are in STEM disciplines or
Mhm.
business disciplines, to lean on their colleagues or their fellow students in the humanities and social sciences for ethical implications or the way that we use maybe green technology to better mankind or to better our lives, et cetera. So I think there is a sort of a shakeup that's going on in higher education that is unwritten and maybe not as publicized, and
Mhm.
institutions are adjusting their own, I guess, their own pedagogical model around some of these things. But I think what you had said earlier is probably not beyond beyond the imagination. However, throughout the world, and England is no exception, there are
Mhm.
institutions that have survived hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of change and adaptation, et cetera. And I think as time goes on, they too adapt. And so I think I don't know that there will be, figuratively speaking, a shaking of the tree and the low-hanging fruit falls among the institutions that are more globally recognized. I think there
Mhm.
could be that at maybe more the regional level in the next maybe 30 to 40 years.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Interesting thoughts. I've been privileged enough to be in some of these conversations in the UK with some
Mhm.
big institutions. Well, I say in the conversation. I've been a fly on the wall,
Yes.
to sitting in the listening in, and they've echoed some of your points. But yeah, there's a shift happening for sure. As you said, it's not so public.
Mhm.
Um, I've just been a fly on the wall, but definitely, yeah, it's echoed a lot of what you said. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting.
It will be,
Yeah,
certainly.
very interesting. Yeah, for sure. They're very interesting. But it kind of naturally leads on to my next question for you, which would be around enrollments and cultural fit. So, how do you balance the pressures, I guess, the pressures of hitting enrollment targets and student recruitment targets, whilst also having a matching with a cultural or academic fit, shall we say? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a stress point for any seasoned college admissions officer. As you grow into this profession, you become very aware and very cognizant of the pressure to increase enrollment or to shape a class that might uh, suit an institutional directive or an initiative, et cetera. And so it is becoming more and more challenging every year. I've been in this work now for 34 years, and I've seen a demographic shift from the early 90s. Now we're seeing it again. But
Hmm.
I feel that we are trying to reach a broader audience. And at our institution, we are very well known in the Northeast of the United States, particularly from areas from perhaps as far north as Boston, Massachusetts, to Washington, D.C. in that corridor. But we have made an institutional effort over the last decade to broaden. We always receive student applications, and we would receive matriculated students from outreach territories here in the U.S. and globally. But I think our efforts to attract those students that are from the Midwest, the South, the West Coast of the United States, as well as globally, have been increasing over the last several years. We actually have an operation that works out of San Francisco, California,
Okay.
that was designed to scale up our our notoriety in the mountain and the western region of the United States. We also have a person who lives in India who has headed up our efforts in India specifically. But over the last few years, it's been more challenging internationally, only because we are institutionally need aware for our international students, and that has presented a completely new dynamic where we want to attract students who have we can provide some level of financial aid for international students. We can, but we can't for all. And so I think it's becoming more and more challenging on a global perspective to attract students. And now in the current political environment, we are also aware of the international students who themselves are trying to come to the U.S. to study in the fall. So our attention is focused on what can we do for our international students who might need to delay because of visa delays. They might need to delay their enrollment. And so it's always changing. It's an ever-changing landscape.
I see. It seems to constantly be evolving from what I've seen as well, just in general. Obviously, you mentioned regional issues and trying to go further afield. But yeah, I think that happens across the board, really. It's just as you said, every institution has their own challenges in many different ways, depending on the area and how well you're known. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I think that varies, especially in the United States, where there is, what could be an issue on one college campus might not be an issue on another, or they might not worry about it as much, or it simply depends on their position in the marketplace. If they are, an institution that, is not always kind of at a loss for applicants, or they're not seeing declines in their applicant pool, but they're seeing increases in their applicant pool, those places might have issues that other places would say we would love to have that as an issue.
Yeah, of course. Before I move on to the next question, I just want to ask something. I want to ask the same question in a more crude way, because we're in the agency world, so I like to, because we have to deal with these issues ourselves. Yes. How do you manage essentially getting bums on seats with academic process, procedure, and policy? So obviously managing how you intake students, given the right morally, ethically, even politically, advising those students in the right way. How do you manage that? Because I guess every institution has that problem to some degree. God knows what's happening behind closed doors in the back office, but in terms of on the front end, like everyone has that problem. So like, how do you, as much as you can give away, I guess, how do you manage that? Bums, like if you need 1,000 students by September, then you've got, I mean, how do you balance, I guess, that?
Certainly. That for us, that begins and ends with our holistic application review process, where we are looking at candidates from a broad number of angles, not only their academic success and their academic markers from their curriculum from 3.5 years to 4 years of high school, but we're also looking at them from a non-cognitive perspective. What kinds of activities, what kind of leadership, special opportunities, if they've conducted research or they've worked perhaps a job in off hours during the week, how do they balance and manage their time effectively? Also, we're keenly interested in the letters of recommendation and what do teachers or high school guidance counselors have to say about their growth and development and their potential for contributions in a competitive college setting, I think there's a lot of anxiety and angst among high school students these days, and they're trying to do their best in all ways, shapes, and forms, not only in the classroom, but also to build a resume that is appealing to a college or university. Um, and I worry a little bit, frankly, because those
Hmm.
students who stress themselves out for nearly 4 years of high school, or maybe the last 2 years of high school, they might arrive on a college campus and feel a little bit burned out or a little bit exhausted, both intellectually or maybe socially. And yet they're setting foot on a college campus where that competition will increase because especially at places that are very to most selective, where many of the first year students come from the top percentages of their high school graduating classes. They're able to time manage effectively. They're able to, et cetera. They're able to really kind of manage themselves. And I worry a little bit that they might be, at a stress point where it's a bit difficult to manage. But to do that, again, to go back to your original question, we're fortunate. We get about 20, a little over 20,000 applications for just over 1,500 spaces in a typical first year class. And so we're able to employ a review process that is decidedly humanistic. I know that there are implications of using AI to help, maybe, I guess, kind of, accelerate the review process. We haven't yet gotten to that point, but we have enough applicants that we feel are qualified in our pool to be able to admit them to the first year class. But it's the competition where students might say, maybe I was admitted to Lehigh, but I was also admitted to these other
Hmm.
institutions. I'm considering more broadly my options and opportunities. So that's where it becomes more competitive is the choice that the student ultimately needs to make.
Okay, okay, interesting. But yeah, from what I'm hearing is just you guys definitely have a holistic approach. But again, you guys have different problems to other institutions.
Exactly.
Some may not have as many applications towards first year programs. So yeah, of course,
Exactly.
that makes sense. So it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act for sure.
Yes,
So
it certainly is.
speaking of undergraduate recruitment, what kind of trends have you noticed? What do you think's coming up in terms of just undergraduate recruitment in general? You did mention earlier, I think at the beginning of the conversation around birth rates. We have a situation
Yes.
in the UK as well.
Yes.
Where do you see all this stuff going really in terms of trends?
Well, I think again that the birth rates will contribute to the demographic cliff, and that is for certain on everyone's minds in higher education admissions. And I think even among leadership on college campuses throughout the world. The other piece that I would definitely mention, this is a phenomenon that is more protracted. It's probably the last maybe 15 or so years, but the role that social media has played in not only the student's investigation of an institution from start to decision, so from the beginning of the process till the ultimate decision is made, but also in the post-decision phase. That is, if a student knows they've been accepted to a number of institutions and now they're in the position of making a choice, social media could have an even bigger influence on trying to persuade them to attend an institution and consider the value proposition offered by that place. But it plays such a huge role these days. And we too, on our campus, are trying to utilize social media in a very honest and ethical manner. We're not presenting the institution in an unsuitable or in a manner that impugns other places or has any other. It has everything to do with us and what we provide on our campus to students, and while at the same time not trying to degrade the process or other institutions. We know that students will have choices, but we're trying to use social media, as I said, in an ethical and fair manner that is it gives them the best opportunity to understand us. Now, we still have campus visitors. We still go out to high schools. We visit high schools in the fall semester. The admissions staff, we schedule visits to interact with students. We attend college fairs. So we try to have as much physical face time as we can not only with students, but their guidance counselors, with community-based organizations that serve as a proxy to a number of students who might attend a large public high school where college counseling might be diminished significantly. So we're trying to balance all of these influences in the ecosystem, if you will, um, and still manage to attract the class. So it's tough to balance.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine it's tough, but you guess you got to keep drilling at it, keep going for it, really.
Yes.
Um, but something I wanted to even bring up in one of your previous answers is because you mentioned it around the challenges of student recruitment, because ultimately it's competition.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I wanted to dig into that now, actually. Like how, again, I'm guessing you can reveal as little or as much as you can reveal, but how do you deal with that? Obviously, you just mentioned, you're not gonna shed bad light on any other
Mhm.
institution or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
because obviously not. But how, yeah, how would you balance that? I guess, I mean, I'm assuming you put your best foot forward. You talk about what you guys do, and assuming what you don't do, so
Right.
people know if this is the right institution for them, or is there anything else you guys do?
Yeah, we do really try to emphasize the value proposition, and it's not simply a 4-year experience. It's yes, when students come to our campus, they will have a level of intellectual and academic challenge that we promote through our messaging and through our emails and various communication with prospective students. But then we also really focus on life beyond the university because there's a lot of living to do at the age of 21 or 22 years old when these students emerge with their bachelor's degrees. And so what we're also promoting are the success of our alumni, the opportunity to network and interact with them as undergraduates, and that we are not necessarily preparing them. I mean, we certainly are preparing them for their first job, but we want that recognition that what you learn here is not simply preparation for the first job, it is preparation for life and what will come with that. Your exposure to leadership opportunities, your exposure to different thought processes and way to solve or really address the grand challenges, the big questions, et cetera. So we're really promoting outcomes. And I think given our record, given the fact that we do have a number of favorable rankings, and although rankings are something that I think students need to take with a grain of salt, they need to take carefully and understand what the ranking actually portrays. But at the same time, I think we are proud of where we exist in mid-career salaries and kind of life beyond the university that this is simply not a 4-year endeavor. This is a connection for life in one way, shape, or form as you go forward. So we don't promote it simply, as I said, as a 4-year um, uh, proposition. It is yes, it's 4 years, but it's a life. And they are always connected back to us. And they're sort of, as they get out and they emerge in their careers, our alumni, we want them to contribute back to the undergraduates who are here,
Mhm.
those students who are behind them, and they're going to be the next round of emerging leaders or the next wave of thought leaders, et cetera, in the world. So we're still, again, keenly connected to people who have graduated, 30, 40 years ago, as opposed to students who graduated a few years ago.
Yes, yes, of course. A lot of institutions do that, and that's kind of the key to trying to create that virtuous cycle, I guess.
Yes.
Um, I had a question on my mind that just slipped my mind for some reason, but we'll move on. We'll move on. Um, no, that's what I was gonna ask. So we're an agency. We're built differently. We're a lot smaller. We're a lot agile. We're a lot more agile, shall we say? And our job essentially is, you come to us if you want more bums on seats or you want to make your current process more efficient with AI and stuff.
Mhm.
So our approach is we're always looking at like the psychology, like the decision making process for a student. So
Yes.
it's like, or a potential student. So what we find, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. What we find is, for the most part, because you mentioned it earlier in your answer, for the most part, it's more about outcomes.
Yes.
students than it is about just the university. Even if it's, if it's Harvard, yeah, Harvard's great, but what's Harvard
Certainly.
going to get me? So even at the highest level, it's the same thing. So is that similar when it comes to your communication and marketing to students? Is that a similar thing? Do you get, like you just said, it's more than just a 4-year degree. It's a lifelong
Mhm.
support system, if you want to call it that. So is that what you guys focus on with your communication as well? Or
It is. It's a combination of both um, current opportunities on our campus, and it could be not only academic, but it could also be from the campus perspective. It could be leadership options. It could be study abroad options. It could be
okay,
opportunities to complete internships while they're undergraduates, et cetera. So it is a very comprehensive communication plan that we've crafted, and we continue to improve every year.
yeah, fantastic. So with that being said, we love data.
Yes.
Again, we love data. Again, we kind of forced to love data because without this, we
Yes.
wouldn't survive. But I would love again, I would love to know a bit more about kind of how data steers your decision making. I mean, you individually in your role in your office, and then
Yes.
also just institution wide. How does that work? Is there a lot of data involved? Is there a lot of analytics involved? Is it more quant? Is it more qualitative?
Mm,
How does it? What's
mhm.
what's the what's the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to begin, yes, there's an enormous amount of data that we collect. I'm sure that every institution collects
Hmm.
not only on the type of student that we attract, but also their outcomes, et cetera. So there's an enormous amount of data that's out there, and that we're trying to use it to the best of our advantage. However, in the admissions process, yes, we use data. Yes, we do use analysis to understand, the behavior of a 17 or 18-year-old or a 16-year-old prospective student who is looking at our place. But when it comes to decision making and who is being accepted and so on, I think we're more in a data informed mindset as opposed to a data driven mindset. And there are two very distinctive approaches, I feel, is that if you set up maybe, if you set up a program to determine, well, these characteristics will contribute to a student's probability of enrolling increase by X%, et cetera. I still think that we're humanistic enough to say that at the end of the day is not going to drive the final decision. This is not kind of a mathematical equation. It's not a mechanical process. That the data has a place and we respect it and we use it, but it's not, at the end of the day, it doesn't drive decisions fully.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Okay. From what you're telling me, I feel like it's you've decided, well, not you've decided, you've clearly observed that it's more of an emotional decision than a logical decision for students. Because if it was all
In
logic, then you could just use data, I guess, isn't it?
Of
If it was all
course,
just like, yeah.
of course. Yeah, it's informed by data. Like we will look at, our performance in certain areas of the US or certain parts of the
Hmm.
world, and where we've attracted and why we've attracted those students. And that's all data informed. That is. But when we're working with, you know, people, it's still, the process is still decidedly humanistic. We couldn't affix, again, a calculation necessarily. I'm sure there are places that are using it to
Yeah.
maximize
Yeah.
their yield, the number of students who say yes. We are sort of somewhere in between with that.
Okay. Okay. So that scale seems for me, the translation for me is bums on seats, holistic approach, and
Yes.
then you're somewhere, yeah. Which again,
Yes.
it is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that kind of leads on to my final few questions around the hot topic that everyone seems to be talking about, which is artificial intelligence, AI, and how you guys are using it, if you guys are using it. I know you mentioned it briefly earlier before. Sorry, mentioned it before. So where are you guys at? It seems like again you mentioned a humanistic approach a lot. Have you guys thought about using it? I've been a fly on the wall in a few conversations with some big institutions. They've got strategy teams ready. They've put people together. they're tendering that. So that's where they're at. Some of them already put money down and they've got things in place. We even offer a service. We've got a couple of clients, so it's like people at different stages. So where are you guys at with that sort of thing?
We've actually partnered with a vendor that introduced an AI bot to recruit. However, prospective students have to themselves opt in to be contacted over the telephone by one of our AI recruiters, and it's scraping our website. The answers, there's always feedback in terms of the quality of the recruitment. We're growing it now. So again, we have a contract with a vendor that's provided that, and we'll expand. We've decided to expand that contract and use AI to analyze a student's high school transcript. However,
Wow.
we will still, as a team of individuals, we will allow the AI piece to have a role in helping us to understand the student's academic performance through their transcript. But at the end of the day, whatever is the output from that AI, we will make the final decision. So, and of course, we'll have opportunities to correct the AI as it moves along. It has to obviously grow and understand, et cetera. But the company that we've partnered with, I think they have a proven track record with their AI piece specific to the high school transcript. But we're not using AI in any other way to predict or to determine the likelihood of enrollment. So we haven't gotten that deep into it yet.
Okay, interesting. So transcripts make a load of sense.
Yes.
Just to clarify, is it voice AI, optional voice AI for students?
No, it's voice
That's
AI. In fact, we had an opportunity to fine tune the voice, the tone, the name. We actually named our AI recruiter. Ours is named Lucy, and Lucy was the name of the daughter of the founder of
wow.
Lehigh University. So we have a little bit of history tied into our AI recruiter. And really, at this point, since we adopted it, I'd say 6 to 8 months ago, we're only skimming the surface right now with the AI recruiter. I think we'll get more involved in it in the months ahead and as our contract with this company goes forward. But there's a lot of vendors out there that are willing to do this on different scales and different levels of sophistication. So we're just getting involved in it.
Fantastic. I was going to ask for some data and some information, but I guess you're not there yet. You haven't got enough. It's just been not been long enough. You've not implemented it long enough to know
Right.
anything around.
Right.
Yeah, which is fair enough. That's interesting because we offer a similar service. We don't actually offer voice. Because we've been doing it for a year and a bit now, year and a half, 2 years, and we found that voice doesn't work as well for a lot of the clients that we have.
Right.
But doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just doesn't work as well for text-based stuff,
Right.
which I found interesting. Students, again, it could be for many different reasons why our particular batch of students
Mhm.
don't seem to respond to voice as much.
Yes.
But yeah, it seems like they just prefer to
Yeah.
respond when they can instead of just having a conversation with someone. And some people, then public opinion as well. Some people they just don't
Agreed.
like the idea of AI for some reason.
Agreed.
So
I
there's a lot of challenges with it, but it definitely works with me doing it. So it's like at what scale we don't know, but yeah, for sure.
I've been in the profession long enough that I'm still on the fence. I understand that AI is the future. I recognize that. It's going to play a huge role going forward in so many different areas of society in our world. So I wouldn't put my head in the sand and act as if AI is simply a trend because it's not. But at the same time, being in this profession for over 3 decades, I'm still of the mindset that there has to be some humanistic piece to this,
But
that
yeah,
it doesn't, like, you don't relinquish the way, the process, the way you recruit students, the humanistic piece, the ethical implications of recruitment in a fair manner. And so that's the way I've approached it. Younger people might say AI is everything. It'll make, it's the work smarter, not harder kind of
hmm
approach. I get it, but I'm a little bit old school.
I'm in the same boat, even though my business says otherwise. But it's there needs to be an element of humanistic there needs to be a humanistic element as you
Yes,
mentioned, in my opinion. But we do a lot. It's just efficiencies. It just makes every staff member, every student recruitment member way more efficient, makes the whole process way more efficient, and then gives those people that want the option to speak to AI, like you said, make it optional, gives them to go through the process a bit in a quicker, speedier manner for them, if that's what their students prefer. I think it's an option right now. It's very powerful. But yeah, I think there needs to be a humanistic approach. But I think ultimately, globally, there needs to be overall acceptance of AI before anything can.
right.
That's what it is at the end of the day. I think more than the
Yes,
abilities, because the abilities are there, as you've seen. It's just the abilities are outrageous. It's kind of scary, but
it is. It is Brave New World kind of thing.
tell me about it. It's terrifying. But that actually leads on to my final question, really around where you see AI going. I did put down in our notes that
Hmm?
where do you see AI going in 3 to 5 years? But I don't think anyone can answer that question. Not from just from what I've seen and the capabilities. This 3 to 5 years is way too. That's like asking for 25 years. So let's
Right.
pull it down to like a year or two. You guys already implemented into what you guys are doing. Obviously we're implementing in ourselves and our clients' businesses. Where do you see it going in a year or two? Like you guys are obviously using a voice. Do you see you expanding into what we offer, like the text-based stuff where it could be WhatsApp, iMessage, SMS, emails? Like, do you see that happening, or where do you see it happening for yourselves and then just institutions across the board?
I think it could replace some of the traditional recruitment strategies. It could replace online interviews or online virtual sessions where they are hosted by AI chatbots or some version of AI.
Mhm.
That is at the sort of the beginning, sort of the discovery phase of an institution as they're beginning their investigation. I think for institutions that have extremely large volumes of applications, if an institution has, let's say, over 100,000 applications and only 6,000 seats to fill, I think that AI might be a first wave of might contribute to a first wave of review that looks for certain academic markers, might eliminate students on the first pass, and then it distills down the applicant pool to a finite number of manageable applications that a group of humans actually read. So it
Mhm.
could get involved there. I don't know. I do. Well, right now with the personal essay that every student has to write, I can't help but wonder how many of those essays are supported by an AI team
I like
that
that
the
word you used. I like
yes
the word
supported.
supported.
Yeah, and it's interesting because institutionally here we are investigating and understanding the role of AI in the undergraduate experience. So it's not just a recognition that it's happening in the high schools and among college applicants, but I think universities have an obligation to recognize AI's role and how it can be used to support, but not to replace the kind of the academic piece, the learning process. And so we too are at that point, but I feel that AI hopefully won't replace the review process, the application review process, though it can. But I still hope that it's a humanistic process.
Okay. I'm on the same page, but we will definitely see where it goes. You just kind of made me think about another point around, again, a lot of, potentially undergraduate work will be supported via AI, but then it's like, what happens if it's no longer supported? It's just 360-degree, 100%.
I know.
God knows. Yeah, God knows. But I'm
I
obviously, yeah, institutions you guys will adjust accordingly, most likely using AI to adjust to compete or challenge AI in itself, but who knows?
I think that AI in the future will make smartphones that were developed maybe 25 or so years ago look like a small blip on the radar screen. I think AI is huge, and we know what smartphones have done, what they've what they become. It's their influence. Everyone walks around with a phone in their hand, and sometimes they're glued to that phone. Who knows? Maybe AI will take people away from that, and it'll we'll emerge into a different phase of maybe diminished human interaction. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we definitely will. Sounds a bit scary, but kind
Yeah.
of exciting as well. But yeah, it is what it is. But again, Bruce, thank you for your time today. I think your
Pleasure, Jay.
insights have been very interesting. I've learned a few bits myself.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure the audience has as well. But before we round up, is there anything you want to mention about anything about yourself? You want to mention maybe any academic work or just any work in general, and then about the institution or
Yeah, I would simply share that the whole process of finding a right college, if you're confident that you're going to land, that everything will be okay, that you'll engage in a meaningful and deliberate search that will, take you to a host of institutions that you'll enjoy, that you'll find that you can be successful at. As long as you enter this process with that mindset, I feel like you've won half the battle. Um, it's a match. College admissions is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. And so that's the way that I like to look at this process.
nice? You left us with a nice quote, a nice one-liner.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bruce's information will be in the description of this on LinkedIn and everywhere else that we post. It's mainly LinkedIn and YouTube. Again, Bruce, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully we can have a part two.
My pleasure,
Thank
Jay.
you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Same to you. Cheers.
Thank you.